Yeah, welcome in. Welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast Live. Yes. So this is the Sunday edition. This was supposed to be the Sunday morning edition, but my computer decided to act crazy on me this morning, so I couldn't get it, remedied in time. But we back in business. We're back up and running, and here I am. And looks like I'm just going to be going dolo here. So got four pretty good topics. As you can see by the thumbnail and by the rundown, we got some good stuff to discuss. Of course, I got to get my NFL in, so we're going to talk about some very interesting information that's come out about Caleb Williams and him and his dad's thoughts going through the draft process, and then through his rookie year, that really kind of shed some interesting light coming from former ESPN personality and author Seth Wickersham, who has written some really good books about different athletes and stuff like that. Then we're going to get to talking back to the playoffs, and we're talking about the Indiana Pacers, because we haven't really discussed them much, but it's time we give them a little respect because those guys are for real. Then we're going to go on to the one and only Charles Barkley, who he says what he wants and he says what he means. And that's going to be a very interesting situation when the NBA show featuring him, Shaq, Kenny, moves over to ESPN next year, because those guys don't necessarily have an NBA show, that kind of falls in line with ESPN and how they like to present the NBA. So I'm very interested in giving you guys my thoughts on that. And then finally, we'll finish up with a little more NFL. As the season schedule was released last year, I'm going to talk about the 5 games I'm most looking forward to watching next season. All right. So yeah, we're going to do that. Shout out to members of the channel. Shout out to the one and only Laker Nation, my number one channel member. Appreciate you, Laker Nation. If you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe to the Be Ready Sports podcast that he does. Really good show, great opportunity that he has with his show to kind of highlight a lot of the up and coming athletes that he has worked with or that he knows of. Really give those guys the opportunity for people who haven't seen him and heard about him to hear about him and see him. And he does some really good work over there. So we love that. And we want to give him a shout for what he's doing. And again, make sure you like and subscribe to his channel. Also, shout out Chief Sid Bubba. What's going on, Chief? Shout out to the boys from Annapolis, Anchors Away. All right. A shout out to my guy, It's Not That Serious. What's going on? It's Not That Serious. And of course, Baltimore Bruce. What's going on, Baltimore Bruce? Hopefully you have recovered from yesterday's opening day debacle for your girl Angel Reese and the Chicago Sky. But if not, I'm sure you'll get there. Sometimes it takes a little time, much like it took for me to get over that devastating beating that my Celtics took at the hands of the Knicks the other night. But that is what it is. Transformer, what's going on, my brother? Anchors away. All right, guys. So no quick hits today. I'm going to go ahead and get right into it. But before I do that, one quick thing, I'm going to give the spiel, and then we'll get back and we'll get right into the sports talk. If you're watching here on YouTube, make sure you go ahead, click that subscribe, that like, that notification bell. Make sure you're kept up to date whenever we drop new content on the channel. If you want the audio only version of the podcast, open up your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in The Format Podcast. We should come right up. If you're enjoying the content, make sure you give us a like, leave us a 5-star review, and drop a comment. All that stuff helps us rise in the algorithm, helps us find more sports fans, helps more sports fans find us. Make sure you write it down, put it in your phone, make a note of it. The Format Podcast is live Sunday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern. And finally, if you're really and truly enjoying the content we're delivering you, make sure you hit that join button. There's going to be exclusive content here just for you. All right. So let's get going with it, y'all. Let's get going with it. No quick hits. We're getting straight into these topics today. Okay. So the first one, Caleb Williams was the number one overall draft pick in the NFL draft. Not this past one, but the prior year, right? Out of USC. And of course, he was outstanding at USC, won a Heisman, started off at Oklahoma with Lincoln Riley. And then when Lincoln Riley moved to USC 3 years ago, Caleb Williams followed him out to the West Coast. And Caleb Williams, in his first season at USC, won the Heisman Trophy, yet another Heisman Trophy winner, yet another number one overall quarterback that Lincoln Riley helped to raise up and tutor and help to have just an outstanding college career and theoretically start off their NFL career on the right foot by being the number one overall pick. I say theoretically because when you're the number one overall pick in the NFL draft, ordinarily you're going to a bad team. So that's not always the best situation, but you're getting the most money and you're having you're going to have the opportunity, to be in a situation to maximize your earning potential right away. So there's that. But that said, Seth Wickersham, as I mentioned, worked with ESPN, has written a number of really good books. I think he wrote a book on Coach K, wrote a book on Belichick, Tiger Woods, that is. He has wrote a ton of really good books in the sports media space. And now he has written a book about NFL quarterbacks. And so he had some stuff in there on Caleb Williams that I thought was really interesting. So Caleb Williams, number 1 overall quarterback last year, goes to the Bears. He's supposed to be a generational talent. He's a guy that has very good arm talent. He can throw extremely well on the move. In college, he was tremendously elusive, very fast. We saw that kind of slow down a bit in the NFL, which it normally does, right? The athletes on defense in the NFL are absolutely insane. And so even if you're an elite athlete, unless you're just a total super freak, a Michael Vick, a Cam Newton, a Lamar Jackson, that level of guy, it's very Josh Allen is very difficult generally as a quarterback to get away from defenders in the NFL, right? So anyway, we got Caleb Williams comes into the league, has a very that OKC game is over, Transformer. That's right. But yeah, that he had a difficult season. Caleb Williams, probably the worst season of his life as a starting quarterback, which I guess most number 1 overall picks pretty much experience that, right? Because most of them have been so much more physically gifted and skilled than their opposition that, since they started playing the game, they've had a tremendous amount of success. So last year, Caleb Williams was 5-12. That was his record as a starter. Completes 62.5% of his passes for 3,541 yards, 20 touchdowns, and only 6 interceptions. Now, that's not bad because most of the time, what you see is rookie quarterbacks coming into the league and throwing a ton of interceptions because the game is so fast, right? Whether it's the pressure, whether it's the defensive backs, whether it's the holes that would have been wide open in college closing up so much more quickly in the NFL, all that stuff is stuff that happens. And it takes time for these NFL quarterbacks to really get used to that and try to figure out how to deal with it and to have success, right? And so Caleb, while not terrible statistically, just didn't have a good year. Now, a big part of that was lack of good coaching, lack of protection. I believe he was sacked 68 times, which was tops in the league. And you're getting hit by NFL defenders that many times, man. It is very, very tough. And, there's not a whole lot you can do about it. Like if we remember, Derek Carr's older brother, he was the number 1 overall pick and he was in Houston. And he got absolutely demolished. They literally, beat the talent out of that guy in his first few years. He got sacked so many times. He was never able to overcome that, right? And so that's just kind of one of those things. But yeah, Caleb had a decent season. At times he showed promise, but he definitely wasn't he didn't appear to be, the quote unquote generational talent that everyone had touted him as coming out of USC. But now we're hearing a lot of interesting things from Wickersham. You can read about it. You can also listen to different things about it. So I have some clips here, as I like to do, from the Rich Eisen show where he actually had Seth Wickersham on. And he was talking about, so we have 2 clips here. One is about 3.5 minutes. The other is about a minute, not a minute and a half, about 2.5 minutes. So we'll listen to those and we'll talk about it. Yeah, Transformer, you're absolutely right. Chicago has never, they always like to say, sports media guys always like to say the last great Chicago quarterback was Sid Luckman. For whatever reason, the Chicago Bears have great difficulty developing quarterbacks. I don't know what it is, but as an organization, they don't do it well, right? When they got Jay Cutler, they had a chance to go to Super Bowl. I think he got injured in the NFC title game. But he had already been developed somewhere else, right? He came over from Denver. So the thought is probably that if he had gone straight to the Bears, he would never have become what he ended up becoming. So there's that. But yeah, man, Chicago has had consistent difficulty developing quarterbacks, and I don't know what that is. Bears and Browns, what is Wood saying? Bears and Browns are the killer bees for quarterbacks. So Baker was pretty solid. I think in his second year, as the Browns quarterback. He took them to the playoffs and won their first playoff game in like 20 or 25 years, if I'm not mistaken. And I think he threw 5 touchdowns in that game and smoked the Steelers. Smoked the Steelers. So, I mean, I hear what you're saying. On the whole, yeah, the Browns haven't had a great amount of success with quarterbacks either. But yeah, the Bears and the Browns. Yeah, you're probably right, Woodage. Yeah, Baker was good, but they gave up on him for Watson. Absolutely. I don't know why they did that. I'm sure that looking back now, they wish that they didn't, but you make the decisions you got to make and you got to live with them. But yeah, let's go ahead and start listening to some of the commentary from Rich Eisen and Seth Wickersham regarding Caleb and his dad not wanting him to go to the Bears. And this is interesting. And then we'll talk about how the organization, to some extent, failed Caleb Williams. So let's start that off. And you know how I do. I play the clip, I stop, I interject, and then I go back to it. That way, I can have the opportunity to respond in real time to different things that were said. All right, let's check it out.
How close did it come to Caleb Williams truly trying to force his way not to be drafted by the Chicago Bears?
I don't think it was that close, but it was one of those things that was definitely pondered. And, it had been out in the ether in the months leading up to the draft. And what I tried to do was just add some clarity and some detail to it where I could. Look, I think that Carl has been very clear publicly about his opinions of the NFL draft process and the fact that the worst team drafts the best player.
Okay, so Carl is Carl Williams, Caleb Williams' dad, very involved father. So good stuff there. But yeah, he does not like the process that the worst team drafts the best player. But look, that's kind of how sports goes. That's generally how it goes, unless, your basketball is a draft lottery. But the worst team generally, especially in football, the worst team is going to draft the best player because they need the opportunity in terms of parity to try and get better. And also in football, you can do it that way because one player generally is not good enough to be that much of a difference maker in a sport that has, 11 guys on offense, 11 guys on defense. One player, if that player is really good, can make a big difference, but it's not going to be like LeBron or Tim Duncan or Larry Bird or something 30-game turnaround in one season, that kind of thing. So, yeah, what's going on, Steve? Yeah, so that's kind of that's where it starts off when he mentioned Carl. And that's, again, Carl Williams, Caleb's dad, and his dislike of the system in the NFL where the best player, number 1 overall pick, goes to the worst team.
And he was looking for ways around it because he saw a system where his son was locked into the team that drafted him, like all number 1 picks are, for basically 8 years. And so he was trying to find a way around it.
So when he says his son locked into the team that drafted him for basically 8 years, so generally what you have there is you have the 5 years on the rookie deal, right? If the player plays out the entire rookie deal without a new contract, the team can have him for 5 years. I think the 5th year is generally a team option, and then theoretically, the team then can, I think, franchise for 2 years after that. And there's another designation that they can put on the player. It's not a third franchise, but it's something else. So theoretically, they could have that player for 8 years without giving them a new extension. And so Caleb's dad definitely did not like that, especially if his son was not in a position and on a team that he felt was the best position for him. He didn't like the fact that a team could have him locked in that long.
Met with people like Marvin Demoff and Archie Manning and lawyers and people like that, all trying to find loopholes around the draft. And at one point, they even considered joining the United Football League if it would give him a chance to be an unrestricted free agent in 2025.
So that was interesting when he talked about the possibility of his son going to the UFL. Now, I don't know if that would have been after he was drafted or before, right? Because I'm not sure. I should have looked this up, but I'm not sure if there's a situation where you have a certain amount of time prior to the draft where you can withdraw from the draft, but not go back to school. I don't know. Because I guess he's thinking go to the UFL, play for 1 year, and then come back to the NFL, you'd be an unrestricted free agent. But as we know, obviously, if you get drafted by a team now, they hold your rights. So you can play wherever you want for as long as you want, but they hold your rights until you come back to the NFL, and then you have to figure that out. So, yeah, Steve, that is that's how most of us look at it. Manning's, Williams, Sanders, this idea of trying to manipulate where one goes is baffling to me. Being drafted by anyone is a blessing. True. That's how we look at it because none of us are in that situation. But at the same time, this thing is still a business, right? And the teams can look at it like a business. Now, I'm not necessarily a proponent of what these guys are doing either, but if the teams can look at it like a business, then the players should look at it like a business as well, because they only have a small amount of time to maximize their earnings. One, with the physicality of the game, even though they've tried to tamper that down, it's still an extremely physical game with very large, very fast men flying all over the place, colliding into one another. The average NFL career, I believe, is 3.5 seasons, right? So you don't have that long to make the max amount of money, especially for the time and the effort that you have put into getting to this level. So I get what you're saying, Steve, but also, we have to look at this thing from both sides. Although I will agree with you, my issue is the system is what it is, right? Is it right? I'm not sure. Is it wrong? I'm not sure. But the system is what it is. And realistically, you haven't done not you being you, of course, but if you're being drafted, you haven't done anything on that level yet for you to be trying to dictate terms. To me, to be able to dictate terms, you have to go prove something first. That's just my thought, but I'm sure there's way more to it. Let's see. Woodage says, Jim Kelly tried to do that with the Bills in 83, ended up joining them in 86. It worked out for him in the end. Yes, it did. I believe Jim Kelly went and played in the USFL for a few years, if I'm correct, right? Woodage? I believe he did. And then he ends up coming back and he's still with the Bills. He went to 4 Super Bowls. Obviously, he's a Hall of Famer, never won a Super Bowl, but it is what it is. Well, so Woody says college, the teams are stacked with great rosters, NFL, not so much. What it is that the talent is spread out across the league more evenly in the NFL. You're not in a situation where it's going to be so easy like in college where, you can be Notre Dame playing Bruce Hope State and run it up on them, 66 zip, right? That's not going to make it. But in the pros where the talent is spread out evenly, because less than 0.5% of all high school football players end up ever making it to the NFL, right? I think I looked it up the other day and it's like, I think it's less than 0.3% of all high school football players ever make it to the NFL. So, to be there, even though we look at some guys in the league, we're like, man, this dude's sorry. Those guys are the best of the best of the best, right? So we got to look at it that way. All right, but let's get back to Seth Wickersham and Rich Eisen.
Ultimately, none of those really were things that he wanted to do. At the Combine, Caleb obviously met with the Bears. He also met with Kevin O'Connell of the Vikings, and they hit it off. And I have a lot of stuff in the book from Kevin about how he coaches quarterbacks and how it's rooted in his autobiography.
Now, that's really interesting that he said he really hit it off with Kevin O'Connell at the Combine. Now, I think by now we should be convinced that Kevin O'Connell is a really good quarterbacks coach. And if we're not, we only need to look at last season where he coached Sam Darnold, who's a guy I still don't believe is very good, but he coached him to his clearly best pro season. Now, of course, he had elite weapons to throw to, but still he coached him to his best pro season. So clearly Kevin O'Connell knows a little something about what he's doing. He's also a former quarterback who played in the league, right? So he knows how to scheme stuff up. He knows how to talk quarterback. He knows how to talk to these guys, connect with these guys, much more so than, say, Matt Eberflus, who's a former defensive coordinator. And we're going to hear some stuff about that later.
And they just really took to each other. And at one point, Caleb said, I got to go to the Bears. And his dad was like, let's try it. But
real quick, he just said at one point, Caleb said, I got to go to the Bears. What Wickersham meant to say there, he said, Caleb told his dad, I got to go to the Vikings. That's been widely reported that he wanted to go to the Vikings. But obviously the Bears had the number 1 overall pick, and they were not going to trade it to a division rival, to give them a shot at a guy who was regarded as a generational level quarterback.
Like, they both knew that getting traded to a divisional rival was almost a non-starter. Around the time of Caleb's pro day, Brian Poles, the GM of the Bears, said, we're drafting you no matter what. Remember, they didn't even look at quarterbacks like Jaden Daniels. They were all in on Caleb. And so that left one option, the Jack and John Elway option of basically nuking a city and making a situation untenable. And while I think Carl would have been willing to do it and was willing to take bullet for his son, it wasn't something that Caleb wanted to do. And as he told me when we discussed it, he said, I wasn't ready to nuke Chicago.
And that all makes sense. Everything.
It makes a lot of sense.
From a dad wanting to do well by his son to loving Kevin O'Connell. I mean, anybody who talks football and offense and quarterbacking with him gets it right away. And obviously Caleb got it, and all the way through to having a sense of the setup for him on the coaching side wasn't really to his liking, or there could be something up. So, in the limited time I have with you here, Seth, what did happen? Any reporting at all on the Bears' choice to stick with Eberflus, or that's not part of your book?
So that part was crazy to me, and again, we'll hear more about that. But Matt Eberflus being a defensive guy, a guy who hadn't been very good for the most part with the Bears, a guy who I believe had already fired a coordinator. It's like, why would you stick with him? You're getting the number one overall pick. Again, a supposedly generational talent at the quarterback position. Eberflus hasn't shown you any indication that he can help quarterbacks develop, right? Because he had Justin Fields, who many people look at Justin Fields now and say, oh, he's a bum, whatever. But Justin Fields is an elite physical talent, both running and throwing. If we go back to Ohio State, Justin Fields was just as accurate, if not more so, down the field and on tight window throws than Trevor Lawrence was. He was really good, schooled in a pro-style offense, because if we remember, Ryan Day was a pro coach before, going back to Ohio State. So he's familiar with the pro-style game and all of that. So Justin Fields had everything, but Eberflus couldn't coach him, didn't have him have the proper development, didn't have the proper connection with his quarterback. And so there was no indication that he could do that. So you bring in Caleb and you keep him. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense
at all. Did the Williams family have any insight on why Cliff Kingsbury wasn't hired there and they stuck with Eberflus and Waldron was the guy? Anything from that end?
So when they mentioned Waldron was the guy, that's Shane Waldron, who was the former offensive coordinator for the Seattle Seahawks, and I believe he got fired from the Seahawks, and then the Bears hired him and brought him in to be the OC with Caleb Williams. I don't know why. So they also mentioned, you heard Rich Eisen bring up Cliff Kingsbury there, and that would have been a pretty good fit. Why? Because Cliff Kingsbury was Caleb Williams' offensive coordinator during his Heisman Trophy season at USC. So he already knew him, and he had the connection with him. Caleb knew his scheme and his system. So you could have, if you're the Bears, you could have fired Eberflus and hired Cliff Kingsbury as the head coach, or you could have at the least hired him as the OC to work with your quarterback who you believe is going to be that guy.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of good coaches could have been hired, and I think that Caleb was wondering out loud whether he could do it with Shane Waldron. And I think that when Shane was brought in, I think that the Williams camp was kind of underwhelmed by that choice. Obviously, it didn't go well. Shane didn't last the year, neither did Eberflus. And look, the Bears haven't had a great history when it comes to quarterbacks. We know that. They haven't drafted a star since Jim McMahon. That was in the 80s. And even recent guys like Justin Fields and Mitch Trubisky hadn't panned out. And so when you look at the organizational stability, the offensive expertise and performance that was under Matt Eberflus, and just some other issues like, the stadium uncertainty, that type of thing. This is what led them to wonder out loud about that. And again, in the months leading up to the draft, Carl Williams told me Chicago is where quarterbacks go to die.
So, excuse me. So that is interesting. Chicago is where quarterbacks go to die. And in fairness, I don't think there's too much to indicate that Caleb's dad wasn't correct about that. But we're going to see now, because they've got Ben Johnson as the head coach. He's been the hot coaching candidate for the last two hiring cycles in the NFL. Obviously, the former offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. And but in fairness, it's like, okay, the Lions had two good running backs. They had one of the best offensive lines in football. They had a very solid quarterback. They have weapons on the outside. Like, they had everything. So we'll see now if he's that good an OC, or if he just took advantage of a position he was in, him being Ben Johnson, and now he's getting to coach Caleb Williams. So we'll see how much this helps Caleb Williams, and we'll see if this is real. What's up, Bruce? Bruce says, Caleb is a damn diva with them damn fingernails, man. Look, man, it's 2025. These young cats, man, they different. I don't know. That's not different in a good way. But anyway, we'll see. We'll see if he can do his thing. Let's see. No, so you're right, Steve. Steve, we know that you're biased against Ohio State, so we'll take your comments with a grain of salt. But no, the Urban Meyer system is not a good transition for quarterbacks to the league. Absolutely. But no, Ryan Day, his system shouldn't be difficult for quarterbacks to go to the league, because remember, he was a pro coach. He was a pro coach, so he knows what it is. He has pro concepts in his scheme. So I'm not too worried about that. But we'll see. I think a big part of it is that a lot of the Ohio State quarterbacks are so used to having, arguably the best, if not the best, wide receiver room in the country. And so when you have all those type of freaks on the outside that you're throwing to on a regular basis, you're turning around, you're handing off to, all-American 5-star type running backs, it's real easy for you. So you may not ever learn how to overcome difficulty. You may not ever learn how to make the anticipatory throws because your receivers are so good, they're always beating coverage. So there's that. But yeah, this Caleb Williams thing, very interesting. And I can't wait to read Seth Wickersham's book. Now, the Caleb Williams part is just a part of it. He's talking about American quarterbacks in general, but that's a part of it. And I think it's very interesting. So now let's go to the next clip. And this one is about a minute shorter, 2.5 minutes, where they're kind of going to talk about how they feel like the Bears and Matt Eberflus failed Caleb Williams and didn't help him to have success as a rookie. So there may be some truth to that, but I also have some questions there.
Everyone's kind of jumping at what you learned about what the Bears were doing with Caleb last year. Did he and did he really say that they didn't give him any sense on how to watch film and he watched it by himself? Seth?
Yeah, it was one of those things that when I discussed it with Caleb, we brought up Alex Smith, because Alex Smith, has talked a lot about that in San Francisco, how he would just watch film by himself and no one had taught him how to watch film, how you start with certain positions and move backwards from there. And there were similarities with Caleb. And at times he would just watch film by himself with little direction.
So that's interesting to me, right? And the reason that part is interesting to me is that Caleb just telling the truth? I'm sure he's not lying, but is there also a lack of accountability on Caleb's part there? And why am I asking that? I'm asking that because, as I mentioned before, Caleb played for Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley got Jalen Hurts as a Heisman runner-up. He got him drafted in the second round. He got Kyler Murray as a Heisman Trophy winner. He got him drafted number 1 overall. He had Baker Mayfield, Heisman Trophy winner, 3-time Heisman Trophy finalist, and he got him drafted number 1 overall, right? So Jalen Hurts, Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Caleb Williams. All 3 of those other guys somehow learned how to watch film, and they all played for Lincoln Riley. How is Caleb Williams the only one who played for Lincoln Riley but doesn't know how to watch film? Now, am I saying that the situation that those other guys fell into and the coaches they had didn't help them to learn how to watch film? No, I'm not saying that. Am I saying that they didn't guide those guys? No, I'm not saying that. Am I saying that Eberflus and the Chicago Bears organization gave Caleb all the support and the help and the training that he needed? No, I'm not saying that either. But I do find it interesting that Caleb would say, he didn't know how to watch film and they just had him watching it by himself and nobody helped him. Nobody taught him. And I'm like, well, how did Baker, Kyler, and Jalen Hurts all know how to watch film coming out of Oklahoma? But Caleb Williams didn't know how to watch film coming out of USC with the same head coach. That would be my question. But let's go ahead from here.
And, I want to make one thing clear is that, ultimately all of this stuff was Caleb's decision. And he did visit the Bears after his pro day. And he came back and he told, everybody around him that, I can do it in Chicago. I'm going to be a Bear. And I think that, his heart is in it, trying to figure out a way to turn the Bears into a winner. Just some of my reporting touches on some of the concerns that happened ahead of time. But, look, as the season went on, it was a huge validation for the way that Carl Williams saw this process unfolding. Not that I think he's happy about that, but, those were his fear. And he wanted his son to end up at a team that had, the type of quarterback guru that, can be a partnership that lasts the duration of a career. And, already Caleb is going to be on, his third, offensive play caller and second head coach entering his second year.
But I think, the general sense is that he does appear to be in a position of having that attached at the hip career play caller and career maker in Ben Johnson. At least that is the sense that everyone has, certainly in hope in Chicago, that he is going to be that guy. That said, I still can't believe that a kid was let to watch film by himself or not really given too many, parameters on how to be a film watcher or what to look for. That he said he would turn the film on by himself to figure out what to watch. Seth?
So here's the other question. If you're Caleb, all right, cool. Nobody's teaching you how to watch film. There's nobody else in the league you can reach out to for some help on that, some tips. No other veteran quarterbacks maybe that you're cool with. There's no other coach from somewhere that you can go to. There's no quarterback coach. There's got to be a quarterback coach, right? There's no OC that you can say, hey, can you help me with this? Like that right there, again, lack of accountability. That's kind of disturbing to me that, Caleb would say, oh, well, they just put me in the room by myself to watch film. Okay, you want to be the best that you can be. We know you got the physical tools, but cool. You're not going to say, hey, coach, to your OC, hey, coach, to your quarterback's coach. Can you sit in here with me and kind of help me figure out some of what I'm looking at? I have some questions here that I want to go over with you, blah, 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 right? What's the deal there? Or again, are you just wanting to blame your, I'm not going to say your failure, but your less than exemplary rookie season on the circumstance? Like, again, it's one of those things where, yes, the Bears have plenty of blame, but there's also plenty of blame to go around, in my estimation.
Yeah, and again, this has happened before. Quarterbacks do talk about it. It's one of those things about the NFL that we can't really believe that takes place, but it does. And it's one of the reasons why people like Carl Williams were so concerned about where his son ended up and wanted to do everything that they could to try to give him an opportunity to have some agency over where he ended up. Obviously, that didn't end up happening, but that's why. And, people can argue with the tactics or whatever it might be, but it's hard to argue with the logic behind, especially when you see a season play out like it did last year. I mean, he was sacked 68 times. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, 68 times. That's getting the stuff and beat out of you. So I will say this, though. The Bears clearly have made a concerted effort to try and shore up that offensive line this season. So we'll see what they do and how they're able to assist him. And we'll just wait and see. And of course, again, they have made the coaching change. Now they got, boy genius Ben Johnson, and we'll see what he can do without everything that the Detroit Lions had in place. So again, I thought this was really interesting. I would suggest that if this is something you want to know more about, there's plenty of articles out there about it. I think there's an article on ESPN.com, or you can just go on YouTube and go find the Rich Eisen video interview with Seth Wickersham where he talks about it. I'm sure Colin Cowherd talked about it a ton. So there's a lot of information and a lot of takes and stuff out there about it. But I just thought it was interesting, and that was something I wanted to share with you. And I am somewhat excited to see what Caleb and what the Bears are going to be able to get done this season, because they've made a lot of changes. And I think that Ryan Poles' job, maybe Kevin Warren, but definitely Ryan Poles' job is probably on the line here this year if they can't see some level of market improvement, which is tough because the NFC North is a very tough division. So we're going to see what happens, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that. Steve, you make a great point. He will not be objective with a USC quarterback. That is correct. But he won't be objective with a USC quarterback, and he also hates to see defensive head coaches, which is crazy because some of them are actually good. We saw Washington make it to the NFC title game with a rookie quarterback and a defensive head coach. So, but anyway, yeah, you're absolutely right, Steve. But yeah, so those are my thoughts on this Bears quarterback situation and Seth Wickersham and the reporting that he did and what he wrote in his book regarding Caleb Williams and the QB situation prior to the draft and during his rookie year, et cetera. So I wanted to share that stuff with you and talk a little bit about it. But I'm going to go ahead now, open up the phone lines. I will take 2 quick calls, and then we will get right on to the next topic. All right. You know the number, 904-219-8264, 904-219-8264. All right. Yeah, this one was definitely interesting. When I was listening to all this stuff, I was like, man, this is kind of crazy. This is kind of crazy. And I'm not a guy that's at all a proponent of people trying to manipulate where they go before they've done anything in the league. Before you're making moves like that, and before you want to have power, you have to have proven something on that level, to me. But I guess if you feel that you have the leverage to kind of get away with something like that, then you go for it. But I'm not for it. But hey, if you can get away with it and it's legal and it's not immoral, hey, do what you do. All right, I'm gonna wait about another 30 seconds here, and if we don't get a call, we will take it to the next topic. Okay, guys. Well, let's go ahead and move right on. Okay, so we have the Eastern Conference Finals set And this one could be really, really good. And of course, if you're around my age or maybe even a little younger, but if you're around my age, this particular matchup kind of brings back some real nostalgia. And we have the Indiana Pacers versus the New York Knicks, right? And why do I say it brings back nostalgia? Because if we go back to the 90s, then obviously we remember the days of Patrick Ewing and the Knicks and Reggie Miller and the Pacers, and those guys really going at it, having a heck of a rivalry. Reggie Miller just making huge shots in the playoffs in Madison Square Garden, kind of cementing his legacy as one of the all-time great playoff performers in terms of big shot makers and just historical greatness. I really think, and this is just me, but I really think that a big part of Reggie Miller making it to the Hall of Fame, because I believe he was only like a 5-time All-Star and maybe once or twice All-NBA, but that was really tough for him to be an All-NBA shooting guard, because, when he was playing, he came into the league, I want to say in 1987, if I'm not mistaken, and then he played through 2004, right? So throughout his career, look at the shooting guards he had to have been up against in terms of All-Star and All-NBA. Reggie Miller would have been competing for those against Michael Jordan, so that's one locked up every year that Jordan played. Obviously, Ray Allen, Mitch Richmond, Kobe Bryant, like some of the best freaking shooting guards of all time. So I think that even though he was only a 5-time All-Star and less than that in terms of All-NBA, that's not necessarily something we can hold against him. It's kind of like Patrick Ewing being an elite defender but never having a Defensive Player of the Year, and maybe having less All-NBA appearances, because he's playing in an era with Kareem and Shaq and Mark Eaton and Hakeem Olajuwon and David Robinson and Alonzo Mourning, right? So Dikembe Mutombo, a bunch of all-time great centers. So everybody can't get those positions. So it's really tough. And I don't think it necessarily takes away from somebody's greatness as a player, being that they didn't make those things if they play in an era where the competition is just through the roof, especially at their own position. So anyway, I bring that up to say that there are some people who look at Reggie Miller's stats and they look at his awards and accomplishments and they say, is Reggie really a Hall of Famer? And the answer is yes. The answer is yes. And those rivalries against the Knicks and his playoff heroics, I think, are kind of the things that cemented him as a Hall of Famer. Because generally the question is, right, when you talk about Hall of Famers, it's like, can you tell the story of the sport or that league without that player, right? And clearly we can't. Reggie Miller was the author of some all-time incredibly great playoff moments, right? He just was. Whether it's hitting the half-court three-pointer against the Brooklyn Nets to send the game into overtime in the playoffs in 2000, or obviously the 25-point fourth quarter in 94 against the Knicks, and then the 8 points in 9 seconds to seal the game. I think it was game 1 in Madison Square Garden against the Knicks in 1995, or the what's it, game 4 or game 5? Anyway, the three-pointer to win the game, where he runs to the top of the key off of the screen, pushes Michael Jordan out the way, curls to the wing, catches it, shoots, and hits the game-winning three. Like, there are so many moments that Reggie Miller had that help him to have earned his way to Springfield to be a basketball Hall of Famer. But anyway, I bring all that up to say that this is the nostalgia, right? Reggie Miller, Patrick Ewing, Knicks, Pacers. And now we have the newer version. Last year, we saw the Pacers go up against the Knicks and prevail in 7 in the Eastern Conference semifinals before they ended up falling to the eventual champion Celtics. Now, this year, we have the Pacers, who to me, maybe they shouldn't have been, but to me, were a surprise in making it to the Eastern Conference Finals again against the New York Knicks, who to me were definitely a surprise, not the Transformer, because shout out him, he called Knicks in 6 in the last series. And Bruce also called that the Knicks were going to beat the Celtics, so shout out to him as well. Both of those guys were right, and clearly I was wrong. So, Edward, what you say? You're asking me what's my age? I'm 46. So anyway, the point is, you're looking at a series here, which is going to bring back a lot of nostalgia. And I guarantee you, when you start seeing the advertisements for this series, you will see, flashbacks to the Reggie Miller and Spike Lee, Reggie Miller and Patrick Ewing, all that stuff, Davis Boys and Larry Johnson, or Davis Boys and Charles Oakley, etc. So you're going to see all that stuff. I guarantee it, because all that is part of, you know, the lead up and the build up and the sell for this particular series. And you've got another really outstanding matchup, not just in these two teams that have pretty much opposite ways of playing, but in their two star players, right? Tyrese Halliburton and, of course, Big Body Brunson, as K Perk likes to call him. Jalen Brunson, the newly minted clutch player of the year, the guy who the Knicks know that all we have to do is keep it close and stay close. And this is a guy that can bring us home when, you know, when the game is tight towards the end. And then, of course, you got Tyrese Halliburton, who is basically the engine that runs the Pacers offense. And so I'll tell you, the Pacers surprised me because I didn't have them getting out of the first round against Giannis and the Bucks. And that's not to say that I had Giannis and the Bucks like winning a chip or anything, but I just felt like they wouldn't be able to deal with them. And they did. I think they beat them. They beat them 4-1 in the first round, if I'm not mistaken. So they took care of business there. And then they go and definitely pretty much dominate another, 4-1 series. They beat 4-1 or 4-2. I can't remember. But they beat the number one seeded Cleveland Cavaliers. And that was a shocker. And they did it relatively easily. The games they won, they ran them up out of the building. So I say this to say the Pacers are for real, man. And I'm very, very surprised by this. And I'm looking at it. And this is a team in the playoffs that's they're really doing their work, man. They are really doing their work. And in the regular season, they had an offensive rating of 9th in the league and a defensive rating of 13th in the league. So just above middle of the pack, nothing crazy, but, you know, they really did their thing. And then, of course, you had this whole business of Tyrese Halliburton being voted as the most overrated player in the league prior to the playoffs starting. But guess what? I bet you nobody's saying that now, right? Because, he shut them all up. And that's the way you do it, right? Just like if you're the Knicks and nobody thought you had a chance against the Celtics, you go out there, you beat their brains in, and you shut them all up, right? And so now we have a throwback type of series. And what's interesting to me is this is a classic matchup of an elite offensive team in the Pacers versus a slow you down, grind it out, like we said, stay close, and then down the stretch with your best guy, give it to him and let him take you home type team in the Knicks. So this is really interesting, contrasting coaching styles, but both very outstanding coaches. Obviously, Rick Carlisle is a champion. He's a champion as a player with the Celtics, and he's a champion as a head coach with the Mavericks. So he knows what it is to have the ring. And then, of course, Coach Thibodeau, he's a champion as a assistant with Doc Rivers with the Celtics in 2008. The Celtics, which coincidentally, if I'm not mistaken, I think they beat the Lakers by 39 in the deciding Game 6 in 2008. Anyway, not the point. But no, Coach Tibbs, he knows what it is to be a champion as well, but he's never been a champion as a head coach. He's been a champion as an assistant, but he has, if I'm not mistaken, he's had now 2 teams. This is his second time as a head coach getting to the conference finals. So, you know, you got that. So the Pacers are for real. I think this is a really good matchup. I'm excited to see it. And this is what you call the proverbial chess match. So I want to see kind of how that works out and, you know, who chooses what and what that's going to be. It's going to be very interesting in my humble opinion. So yeah, man, the Pacers definitely deserve their respect. This is not a team that we talk about enough. Tyrese Halliburton is the engine, and he's got them guys running. Siakam is doing his thing. And you know what I think a big part of it is, right? And this is part of the LeBron effect, and this is not me taking a shot at LeBron, but we are so used to the best teams having, like, you know, multiple stars on them, right? With, like, when Golden State was winning, obviously you had his Splash Brothers and Draymond, and they you know, Steph was the only true superstar, but they had a team with multiple stars. And then, of course, they bring in KD. So that's like loaded. Of course, you had LeBron in Miami with the Heatles and, you know, that kind of thing. So we're used to seeing teams that are kind of loaded up with star power, right? Even when the Spurs were winning, obviously you had Timmy, who, you know, by mentality and all that wasn't a superstar, but his play was superstar level, of course. And then, you know, you had Tony Parker, who at the peak of his powers was definitely a star. Manu Ginobili, who was a star like off the bench. So when you look going back maybe the last 20, 25 years, there was a lot of star power on these teams. Of course, Shaq and Kobe, et cetera, right? The big three in Boston, star power. So this is why sometimes we don't talk about teams like Indiana, because they got one guy who's a star, and maybe a lot of people don't even consider him a star, but Tyrese Halliburton is that dude, right? Big shot maker, taker, and obviously legitimate assist man, true point guard. And so nobody thinks of Indiana as a team that's like, set to do anything crazy because they don't have a superstar on the team, but they are out there doing it. And then obviously we don't look at New York that way. Number one, because it's New York and we know the media market that is. And New York is always going to get that attention. And then, of course, Jalen Brunson, who has basically turned himself into a star with his incredible late game play. So there's that. Edward says, this is an interesting point. He said, we got to put some respect on Pascal Siakam because he's a champion. Also, they have a championship coach. Yeah, I talked about the championship coach, Rick Carlisle. I talked about him. So nobody is not respecting Siakam, Edward. The problem is, like, nobody sees him as a difference maker. Nobody sees him as a star or a superstar, right? It's just like nobody's going to see Siakam that way. It's just what it is. And that's not to say he can't play. That's not to say he can't have big games and be a major contributor in a time when you least expect it, but nobody sees the dude as a superstar. And that doesn't mean that you don't respect him. See, that's the difference. All right. Let me see. What is this? Edward says, you will put him over the Joker, shaking my head. I assume he's talking about Patrick Ewing. We're not going to do this, Edward. You and the Joker, man. I'm so glad he's about to be gone. We don't have to even hear about him anymore for a while. There you go. All right. So, yeah, the Pacers are for real. Pacers are legitimate. So let's do this, chat. Who do you have winning this series? I know Transformer has the Knicks in 6. I don't know if Edward says Knicks, not Edward. Steve says Knicks in 6. There you go. He is gone. Thank goodness. Yes. Good. I'm tired of hearing about Jokic. Beat it, Edward. We don't have to hear that anymore. And they got smoked. Outstanding. So we got the real MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Let's see what we do today. 35. Very nice. 12 of 19. That's a good game. With Jokic. 27 assists, 9 rebounds. Interesting. 9 shots. Anyway, Transformer says Knicks in 6. Woody says, didn't realize the Knicks and Pacers were only separated by 1 game in the standings. Yeah, it's always weird how that works, right? How you see teams that are so close in the standings. Like, you see that more often in the West year in and year out than you do in the East. There's normally more of a gap, but it is what it is. All right, let's do this. I'm going to open up the phone lines. Anybody wants to call, I'll take 2 quick calls, and then we will move right on to the next topic. We are cruising right along here, y'all. All right. Edward said he's a real MVP, but he's not better than the Joker, and that's a fact, not an opinion. Let me say this. You know what, Edward, man? You love the Joker. It's going to be what it's going to be. It's going to be what it's going to be. But guess what? Shai Gilgeous, SGA, is a real MVP, and SGA just sent him home. So SGA is still going to have an opportunity to play on, try to get to the chip, and the Joker doesn't have that. But here's an interesting thing. This is not even about that. The interesting thing I'll say is that I'm looking forward to this Minnesota OKC matchup because SGA and Ant Edwards is going to be crazy. And I want to see just how much the coaches allow SGA and Ant Edwards to guard each other. I hate this business that modern coaches do of trying to protect their superstars so much by not letting them take on the matchup. Edward, what's good, man? What you got?
Nah, hey, yo, I wasn't gonna call in into this next topic, but you called me out, man. What's this blasphemous you said about the Joker? Even though he's gone, he lost.
Yeah, so we don't have to hear about him anymore.
Okay, we don't. But don't
what?
Hey,
don't what?
He's way better than Patrick Ewing, and I'm standing on it.
You can stand on whatever you want to stand on, but you are typical of your generation of NBA fan. You don't value defense. And so you can have a guy that only plays one side of the floor, and you respect that. I don't. I never will. Thank you.
Okay, play one side on. Okay, is defense playing only one side too? Then okay, but the other guys couldn't get points.
Wait a minute. Hold on. No, because you're lying. No, don't talk about Patrick Ewing couldn't get points. Don't do that.
I was talking about Alonzo Mourning, but let's move on.
Alonzo Mourning was a very solid scorer in a much tougher defensive big man era.
Solid scorer. Okay, 8 points. Let's move on.
What are you talking about? 8 points. Look at his career average. What you're doing is you're looking at Alonzo post kidney and you're trying to utilize that to say, oh, he couldn't score. Don't do that. You're being disingenuous. Stop it.
Man, you being disingenuous, man. You disrespecting a 3-time MVP and a Finals MVP. Who led the playoffs in points, rebounds, and assists, still is part of defense. Now, so anyway, this one's gonna be a good one, good series. We got, it's gonna be real good. I heard the ticket prices went up in the Garden.
Of course they did. Everything is crazy expensive in New York. It's just one of those things.
Yeah, and I'm like, dang, the nosebleeds. I think they went up to like $2,000 or $1,500. I mean,
oh yeah, no, it's crazy. I think the what is it? The courtside seats in the Garden is like $55,000 or something like that. Crazy.
Hey, man, it's mad crazy, but it's gonna be a good one. I saw my brother in the chat said Knicks in 6. However, it's not going to be easy.
No, it's not going to be easy.
And the reason I say that because they got a bench over there on the Pacers, man. They can also give them double digits in points, and plus they starting 5 can go double digits as well. But I know it's going to be a dogfight in that because that's an old school rival. In the playoffs, of course, we had with the Spike Lee and Reggie Miller. I'm old enough to remember that, Bruce. Yes, I'm old enough to remember that. So that's gonna be a good one. But then, so I know you started the show off already before the last game of Game 7. So I know you said SGA and Edwards. That's gonna also be a good one as well.
Yeah.
So who you think can take that series?
Oh man, I got to think about it. I'm not sure yet. I'm leaning towards OKC, but I'm not sure yet.
I want Minnesota to do it. I want Minnesota to get it. I mean, no disrespect to SGA, but man, like we need American players. Come on, man. It's we need that, man. Especially with that Minnesota. It's box office, Bruce. 2 different, Dante DiVincenzo and Julius Randle got traded.
No, I get it. I get the storyline. I get it.
Saying? It's gonna be box office, man. I mean, no disrespect to the small market teams or something, but it's. I'm not disrespecting Indiana or OKC. I'm really not. And then I saw when Gilbert Arenas said, of course, you're gonna probably agree with. At least you're gonna agree with him on this. He said on his panel that if OKC make it to the finals and they win, he will put them over. Well, the OKC fans will put them over, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, and Kevin Durant. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would too. That's a good one. I would too.
Winning is the difference maker.
Yeah, because OKC, I mean, I know they was Seattle at first, but they went down to OKC, but yeah, so this one's gonna be a good one. Hopefully, Tibbs, man, do his thing, man. And I really want the Knicks to get it, but I think it's gonna go to the game. I think it's gonna probably go to a Game 7.
I think so.
Both series actually can go to Game 7. It's not gonna be no gentleman's sweep or nothing like that, and both on the East Coast and the West Coast. So, but yeah, that's all I got, man. I'm waiting to hear for this next topic because I wasn't gonna call in until you called me out, man. I mean. Man, you being really a Calvin right now.
Not at all. Not. By the way, Alonzo Mourning's 2-time Defensive Player of the Year. Jokic will never sniff that.
Jokic.
And he averaged more than 20 each. And he averaged more than 20 in each of those seasons.
A defensive player. Okay, he's a defensive player. And
no, that's not all he was. So don't do that.
Okay,
don't do that.
Okay,
I'm just pointing it out that.
And Jokic got 3 MVPs and a Finals MVP.
Okay, but again,
he led his team.
Edward, what you're missing. What you keep missing. No, you do. You miss a lot when it comes to this Jokic talk because his competition is not the same. So stop it.
Oh, now we're going to talk about competition.
Yes, you have to.
Bruce.
You have
got to
to.
talk about, okay, Bruce, competition, cool. I get it, man.
You don't get
it. Was more fisticuffs. It was more fisticuffs in the 90s.
No,
and the 80s
it's not just about fisticuffs. You miss it. No, see, all right, man. Look, just go do your research, man. I'm gonna holler at you, and I'm gonna move on to the next topic. All right.
Hey, you want me to do my research, but you didn't want to answer my question when I was sliding your DM pardon the left when I say it like that, even though that sounds mad crazy.
Yeah, that sounded terrible.
You didn't answer my question.
But because you don't clarify what I'm. You don't clarify what you asking me when I'm trying to answer your question. But we'll talk, man. Thanks for the call,
y'all, man. Hey, y'all, hit the like and subscribe for this Calvin the Kermit guy, bro.
Hey, man.
Right,
hey. I see you, man. He's a funny guy and all that. I'll see you later.
This here's for the groceries. Mr. Phillips. All right, Bruce, man.
All right, brother. All right, Charles, let's go ahead and I don't think we're going to get any more calls on that. So we take it right to the next topic. We are just cruising along here. All right. So this one, I think is going to be interesting. Not just the topic, but overall how it's going to play out in the future. So by the thumbnail, obviously you can see Chuck won't be controlled. Charles Barkley and LeBron James. And the reason I thought about this, right, is because Charles Barkley's kind of been going back and forth with people, well, for years, right? Because he says what he wants to say and he does what he wants to do, right? And why am I bringing this up? Because as we know, this is the final season of the NBA on TNT. And now their show with Shaq and Kenny and Charles, they will be moving over to ESPN because now ESPN and, of course, NBC, they all have the media rights deal with the new TV deal for the league. And so this is the interesting part, right? We know that ESPN, you can just tell by watching, no matter how you feel, they have a certain slant and a certain agenda when it comes to covering the NBA, right? Obviously, they got a high level of coverage and praise for Jokic. They got a high level of coverage and praise for Luka, and they got a high level of coverage and praise for the Lakers and for LeBron James, right? And Charles Barkley has been on record talking about this numerous times, how the ESPN only wants to talk about the Lakers and LeBron. And, he has been on the record saying that he has LeBron James as his 7th greatest player of all time behind Kobe Bryant. I'm cool with that. Obviously, you all know, if you watch this show, I don't even have LeBron James in my top 10. He's just outside of that for me for a myriad of reasons, but this is not the episode for that. But yeah, so Charles Barkley people did not like when he said that he's got him behind Kobe, which realistically, a lot of players have LeBron behind Kobe. But I know that, there's going to be a lot of people say, oh, Charles Barkley, he's just an old head hater, and he wasn't good enough to talk about LeBron, this, that, and the third. Here we go with the foolishness, right? But anyway, Woody Chair says, Chuck never wanted to go to ESPN. Funny how this is all started around the same time Jordan was announced he's going to NBC. Maybe Chuck wants to go to NBC. Maybe, but he signed a deal with ESPN, and we're going to hear him talk about that a little bit. So he'll be there. But it's very interesting how this is going to play out, right? Because Chuck, again, is not a guy that you can control. You can't tell him, hey, we're going to talk about this and we're going to talk about that. And you have to talk about this and you have to lean a certain way, right? Like if you remember back in the day, this is in the early 2010s, right? When Tim Tebow was like the big thing after he won national championships and came out of Florida. And then he was the head coach, not the head coach. He was starting quarterback of the Denver Broncos, and Skip was all over the Tebow thing. And we've heard former ESPN personalities talk about how ESPN made it a point to tell people, like, you got to talk about Tebow. You got to talk about Tebow. Why? Because at the time he was really moving the needle, right? And now, we as content creators all understand, and we know that LeBron moves the needle, right? The Lakers move the needle. That's just kind of how media is, right? When something moves the needle, you continue to discuss it, you continue to show it, you continue to talk about it, because people are going to tune in for it, right? So it's one of those things. Now, that's not the only thing that you could talk about or discuss or what have you, but you it's like playing the hits. It's like even when the Cowboys aren't good, people still talk about them. And that's what Jerry Jones has mastered, right? The attention, the business, getting money off of the Cowboys being an attraction, not necessarily, being competitive for championships. And so ESPN is big on that when it comes to the Cowboys, when it comes to the Lakers, when it comes to LeBron. So Charles Barkley has been getting into it with Gilbert Arenas. He's been getting into it with Kendrick Perkins about this. And so he recently said that he's got LeBron James as his number 7 player all time behind Kobe, which, I'm perfectly cool with that because I definitely don't believe he's better than Kobe. I mean, you just got to watch the two play, and I don't know how you could believe that LeBron's better than Kobe. But again, not the episode for that. So Charles Barkley was recently on, I don't know what network or podcast this was on, but he was with former ESPN personality and former college basketball head coach Dan Dakich. And they were kind of talking about his future with ESPN. This clip is about a minute and a half, and I thought it was really interesting. And I wanted to play this for you, and I wanted to kind of give my thoughts on it. So let's go.
And you've been critical of ESPN, particularly their coverage of the Lakers. What are your thoughts as this is your last season heading over?
Yeah, Dan, I'm not going to change. I'm going to do what I want to do. Nobody's going to tell me what to say or what to do. I thought I get upset. They're like the Lakers are contenders. I'm like, no, they're not.
So the first thing he says is nobody's going to tell me what to say or what to do. And this is interesting because we're seeing more and more from different people who leave ESPN, and we'll hear something about that shortly, that ESPN is constantly trying to tell people what to say, what to do, what topics to discuss. And it's kind of like, seriously, man, like we get it. We understand how media works, and you gotta play the hits, so to speak. But at the same time, like, there's more to talk about than that. And also, not even just if you're going to talk about the Lakers and LeBron, but the concerted agenda to put guys not where they may not necessarily belong, right? So even when the Lakers aren't necessarily constructed and looking like a championship level team, they go on a little run, all of a sudden it's okay, push the Lakers, to be a championship contender. We gotta frame it that way. We gotta talk about it that way. It's dishonest and disingenuous, but let's go ahead and continue to listen.
No, they're not contenders. Kendrick Perkins, who don't know his ass from a hole in the wall. He's like, the Lakers are contenders. Lakers are contenders. And I said, they're not contenders.
So Kendrick Perkins, even though at times he will go at LeBron, he doesn't really have it to go at LeBron. We know he's the guy that, he's on the LeBron tip, and he's always gonna, push that narrative as well. So I don't know, no one should think anything different, because even when sometimes he goes at LeBron for whatever, he still says that he believes LeBron is the GOAT and this, that, and the third. And I'm like, yeah, okay, no. Even Stephen A. Smith, who went at it very publicly with LeBron, over a number of weeks or what have you, he still is going to tell you that he believes LeBron is the second best player of all time. No, but let's go back to the clip.
And clearly, if you lose in the first round, you're not a contender. But I'm not going to change my personality. Ain't nobody, they can't fire me. I make too much money to get fired. So they can't fire me. And first of all, they fire me. They got to pay me for 7 years, and I'm going to quit way before then. But they want to fire me. I would love for them to do that. The only decision we've been making is how long I'm going to work. And I've been going back and forth with TNT for the last 2 months, whether I'm going to work 2 years or 3 years.
So that's interesting. He got it set up. He being Charles Barkley got it set up in his contract that if they fire him, they got to pay him out for 7 years. That's love right there. That is, I would love to get fired and be able to get paid chilling for 7 years. That's pretty cool.
But if I really wanted to, I could stay for 7 years, which there's no chance of that happening. Zero. But I have made it. I'm making a decision whether I'm going to stay 2 years or 3 years, but it's more likely 2 years. But if they're going to fire me, they'd have to pay me for 7, which they're not going to do because I make too much money. So I'm not worried about getting fired. And nobody at ESPN is going to tell me what to say or do, period.
So I like that. But again, it sheds light onto the whole premise of ESPN literally trying to push narratives by telling people what way to lean and what to say, etc. What you didn't hear there, and I would encourage you if you want to go and find that Charles Barkley, Dan Dakich interview. Dan Dakich talks about how when he was on ESPN, they offered him a national radio show twice. But what happens is that when he got offered that show twice, they were basically telling him that he got to talk about LeBron and the Lakers all the time. And he was like, nah, I don't want to do that. Like, if I will, if I want to talk about it, I'll talk about it. But they were trying to control what he talks about and have him push the narrative, and he wasn't with it. So, I thought that was very interesting. And again, we know that this is not new. You know, we hear guys who will tell you about it. I think Russillo talked about it. Cowherd talked about it. Other guys have talked about it going back to the days. And I'm sure it wasn't just then. Obviously, it was probably prior to that. But, you know, to when Tim Tebow was the hot topic and, you know, Skip Bayless was, Tebow and blah, blah, blah. Every day you want to talk about Tebow. ESPN was telling you, hey, work it in. Like, I think somebody was saying they were literally telling them like once every half hour or something like that, they got to bring up Tebow somehow. So it's like, man, that's not organic. You know what I'm saying? And like, you know, that gets to the whole different thing of no matter how great LeBron has or hasn't been throughout his career, clearly, you know, the media is a gigantic part of, you know, pushing that narrative and helping him reach the levels that he has gotten to in terms of how he is perceived as a basketball player. When you have, for instance, and everybody's not to this level, obviously, but you have your Nick Wrights and you have your Shannon Sharps and, you know, so on and so forth, and Kendrick Perkins and all these different players who continue to help the machine roll along to continue to help to, you know, do that. So it is what it is. Yeah, Edward, you're 100% right that Chuck never wanted to work at ESPN because they work too hard for less money. He did say that they work too much. But again, I'm sure he's got it in his contract that he's not going to be trying to do all that extra stuff, right? He's not going to be like Stephen A, you know, on a show in the morning and making the rounds on all the different shows and then, you know, doing the pre and post game shows in the NBA. And now I'm sure it's in his contract what he's going to do and not too much more than that. So it is what it is, man. It is what it is. Yeah, so I kind of like that. I thought it was very interesting. I love the fact that Barkley's making it clear from jump that he will not be controlled. He's going to talk about what he wants to talk about, and he's going to talk about it how he wants to talk about it. And he's not going to let these dudes, you know, tell him, hey, you know, you gotta say that LeBron is the alpha and the omega, because he tell him, yeah, all right, whatever. He's not going for that. So I thought it was cool. And that was just something that I wanted to bring up and talk about briefly. All right, so I'm going to open the phone lines. I'm going to take 2 quick calls on this, and then we'll go get to the last topic and let you get up out of here and enjoy the rest of your Sunday evening. All right, 904-219-8264. 904-219-8264. Yeah, man, Charles Barkley is interesting. And it's funny, like, do you think on ESPN he could get away with talking about the big women in San Antonio? Probably not, right? A lot of people are going to complain about that. ESPN is it's a Disney network, and, you know, I'm sure you're going to have a lot of women complaining and so on and so forth if he was to say stuff like that. Like him and Shaq, and not so much Kenny, but he and Shaq, they say some wild, well, they used to say some wild stuff on TNT. So it's going to be very interesting to see how much they try to, I guess I'll use the term neuter those guys in terms of how they talk and what they say. Because I think if they do that, it's going to take a lot of the authenticity and the popularity away from that show. So we're going to see, because if they try to do that, it's not going to give you the same results that you were getting on TNT, right? Like, we get what you kind of stand for as a Disney company, but at the same time, you got to let them be them and present the show the way they present it, because if they don't, they're not going to be giving the fans what the fans have come to expect, and the show is not going to be popular anymore, and it'll probably be quickly canceled. So you got to think about that. Yeah, I think that's the problem, Moodich. ESPN will probably water down Inside the NBA. They should have went to YouTube. Yeah, that would have been interesting. Steve, you're an idiot. Man. Yeah, they probably will try to water down Inside the NBA. But, I mean, if you're smart, right, Chuck and Shaq and maybe the producers, if they're bringing any producers with them, I don't know. They got to tell them, like, listen, our authenticity and how we keep it raw, that's part of what makes this show popular. If you try to, you know, make it too family friendly or water it down or what have you, the show is not going to have the same level of popularity. So you can't do that. Even though I think it's definitely going to have an different feeling. All right. So looks like we're not going to get any calls on this. So we will go to the final topic. All right. Okay. So this is the last thing I wanted to talk about, y'all, and this will be real short. The NFL schedule has been released. It was released late last week. And so I wanted to talk about the top 5 games that I am looking forward to in the NFL this season. I think there's obviously every year in the NFL, there's really good ones because, the NFL just gives you great matchups week in, week out, and I love how they do it. So I'm going to just start in no particular order with the top games I'm looking forward to. It's not that serious. What's going on, man? Good to see you. Good to see you. So I'm going to go with the top 5 games that I'm looking forward to watching next year. So, and this is no particular order. I'm going to just get the top 5. Week 1, Baltimore and Buffalo. That's going to be a very good one, right? Rematch of the divisional playoff game in which the Bills upset the Ravens. And I'm sure Lamar Jackson is going to be chomping at the bit to get revenge on Buffalo in that one. And I don't know if he cares about it, but I'm sure there's a lot of people that care about it who want to see Baltimore really go in on Buffalo, especially being as a lot of people felt like Lamar Jackson got robbed for his what would have been his 3rd MVP award this year, which they gave to Josh Allen, which I'm not totally averse to Josh Allen having won the MVP. I did a show on that. You can go back and check it out. That was when Acho was on the show with the young lady who does the Ravens show on YouTube, and he pretty much dismantled her when she was coming with her nonsense. But anyway, not the point. I'm definitely looking forward to this and seeing, how Baltimore looks coming off of them losing in the playoffs to Buffalo this past year. Now, again, it's only one regular season game, but I'm sure they will very much be up for this one. So that's the first game I'm looking forward to. Second game I'm looking forward to, New York Jets and Pittsburgh Steelers in week 1, especially with the caveat of if Aaron Rodgers is the new Steelers quarterback by then, right? Because obviously he was the Jets quarterback last year, and the Jets basically told him, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. We don't want you back. And Justin Fields was in Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh told Justin Fields, yeah, thanks, no thanks. We don't want you back. He's with the Jets now, so that's going to be an interesting matchup. Also, love the matchup of Sauce Gardner and DK Metcalf. I think that's going to be really good. Definitely looking forward to seeing those guys battle. Looking forward to seeing if Sauce Gardner can start his year off right and bounce back after 2 straight first-team All-Pro selections at cornerback. Last year, he didn't make All-Pro at all, had a down year by his standards. So really looking forward to see what he can do against an elite receiver like DK Metcalf. So Jets and Pittsburgh should be 2 good defenses, 2 good teams. So out of the gate, that's a tough one. Next, on Christmas Day, Detroit and Minnesota, rematch of, the final week of the season last year, when all Sam Darnold had to do was play as he had been playing all year long to win that game, and Minnesota would have had home field advantage all the way through the playoffs. But he turned back into Sam Darnold, a pumpkin, right at the time when you needed him most. He basically flopped. I think he had 2 picks in that game, and Detroit ends up winning. But this is going to be a key matchup towards the end of the season in that division, the NFC North, which is going to be a really crazy division. So looking forward to seeing that one, especially Detroit has basically a whole new assistant coaching staff. That one is going to be tough. So we'll see how different they look, even though they have a lot of the same talent. Their coaching staff is going to be different. So we're going to see the coaching job that their head coach is able to do this season in Detroit. So yeah, looking forward to it, definitely. And by then, I guess we'll know for sure what JJ McCarthy is in Minnesota, and we'll really find out what type of head coach Kevin O'Connell is, in terms of if he can turn JJ McCarthy into what they believe that he could be. All right. Fourth one, Baltimore again. Baltimore, Cincinnati on Thanksgiving Day. We saw a couple of shootouts between these guys last year. Hopefully, Cincinnati will not necessarily be in a position where they got to try to win every game down the stretch just to make the playoffs. But AFC North, once again, arguably the toughest division in football. We know what it's going to be, and we know what these games in that division represent. So, get to sit back on Turkey Day and watch those guys go at it. 2 of the best quarterbacks in the league, Joe Burrow and obviously Lamar Jackson, watching those guys go at it. See what Al Golden, former Notre Dame defensive coordinator and assistant coach of the year in college football, see what he can do now that he is the defensive coordinator for the Bengals, and what he's going to scheme up to try and slow down Lamar Jackson and that Ravens offense. Derrick Henry coming back off a 1,900+ yard season He's got a new 2-year extension worth $30 million. So very good for him. Nice to see running backs getting compensated properly, by the way. But yeah, that's going to be a big one. Baltimore, Cincinnati on Thanksgiving Day. Looking forward to it. And then finally, week 2, Super Bowl rematch, Kansas City and Philadelphia. Man, oh man. Man, we're going to see how good is Philadelphia. Are they still hungry? What type of new wrinkles do they put in to try and, come back and dominate Kansas City again? Because obviously Andy Reid is going to watch a ton of tape over the summer. Spags is going to watch a ton of tape. They're not going to come back making the same mistakes. So Philly clearly can't think that they're going to come back just doing the same thing and run through everybody. There's going to be a lot of tape watched on the success that they had. We're going to see what type of year Saquon Barkley has this season in terms of what he's able to add or what they're able to tweak in order to continue to allow him to have success and as such allow Jalen Hurts and those receivers to have success. So that's the 5th most exciting game to me, Kansas City and Philadelphia. So quick rundown again, 5 most exciting games for me coming up this season. Baltimore and Buffalo in week 1, New York Jets and Pittsburgh Steelers week 1, Christmas Day, Detroit and Minnesota, Thanksgiving Day, Baltimore and Cincinnati, and week 2, Kansas City and Philadelphia. Those are my games that I am looking forward to the most. All right. So I will take 2 calls on this one. And then, guys, that's it. We'll get up out of here. This goes a lot faster when I don't have Transformer here with me to bump heads. But yeah, what are you guys' thoughts on the games you're looking forward to the most in terms of the 2025 NFL schedule? And of course, the numbers on the screen. So I'll take 2 calls if anybody wants to call in and talk about it for a second. 904-219-8264. It's a Pro Twizzler network. Stupid. So yeah, that's what that's what I'm looking forward to, guys. I think that we're gonna have some really good games. Yeah. The Bears should have drafted Sanders, Shiloh or Shadur. I'm assuming you're talking about Shadur, but I don't think they could have done that. I don't think they could have done that knowing that they have to knowing that they got to deal with Caleb, and they brought in a new a whole new coaching staff to try and help him have success. You can't draft Shadur after that. Bruce, what up, man?
Ain't shit. What's up with you, man? You already know what I'm looking forward to.
What you looking forward to?
Playoffs, man. All the regular season don't even matter no more, man.
We got to get there, though. We got to get there.
Yeah, we got to get there. I think we foregone conclusion. We going barring injury.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no question.
If the more healthy we going,
yes. Absolutely. If he's healthy, he's a top 3 quarterback, no doubt about it.
I'm just saying, man. Look, gotta get it done. This shit, I'm starting to get fatigued.
I'm with you.
We close every damn near every year.
Well, he's got the ability to do it. We all know that. He just has to do it, and I believe that he will.
These past 2 break losses have been heartbreakers. Though we've been right on the edge, right?
Yeah.
So we got a whole. As far as like and we might play. I think we play Green Bay on Christmas. It's a TBD game. So we play the 21st of December. Then our next opponent is after that 21st game. I mean, the December 21st is Green Bay. So
okay.
They're gonna flex. You already know they're gonna flex that. They're gonna flex that at Christmas.
Got to.
You got to believe that.
Got to.
That's coming.
Yeah, I think that's
Thanksgiving. We play the Bengals on Thanksgiving.
Yes.
But we know we always get those holiday primetime games. We must see TV. One thing about it, we people want to see us play. So
because Lamar is a highlight waiting to happen, right? So
would you consider Baltimore a small market?
Yeah.
Baltimore small market.
But what happens is they're a small market, but they get the benefit of being right between Philly and DC, right? So you kind of have a bleed over of those two markets. So it's technically a small market, but not quite. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, and another thing I'm anticipating, I can't wait to see what Shador do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I ain't even. Okay, well, I want to see what Jackson does. I want to see what everybody do. I mean, I just love football. I want to see.
Yeah.
What's the kid from the Saints drafted? Scoff. I'm gonna see what he did. Even though he looked like trash and don't know highlights, but I just can't wait. Before I was like, we played his first game Sunday night. We played Kansas City. Our first 3 games are treacherous. We got a gauntlet we got to go through. We got to go through Cleveland. What was that? Cleveland, Kansas City, Buffalo, and somebody else. I think the Bengals. The Bengals gonna be better this year. I can't wait. We play them Thanksgiving night. Prime time, of course. Our prime time game. I don't believe nobody prime time games be like our shit.
Nah, Baltimore has some amazing primetime games. Yes, they do.
Our primetime games, man. Let me ask you this: what name another game you named so you can't wait to see?
OKC, so I had Baltimore and Buffalo week 1, Jets and Pittsburgh in week 1, Detroit and Minnesota on Christmas Day, Baltimore and Cincinnati on Thanksgiving, and Kansas City and Philadelphia in week 2.
So you already got a Christmas game already put up there already?
Say again. You
said you got a Christmas game already put up?
Yeah, Detroit and Minnesota.
But another one of those games is TB. Who else playing on Christmas? They got the other team?
I can't remember. I just have it written down here, the 5 that I was looking forward to.
The Ravens, taking the Ravens in the Green Bay. Won't get that game. It's on the Thursday night to you, I think. Come on now. It's only right. Yeah, before I was like, man, we got a long way to go. January. Man. This regular season don't even matter no more, man.
It doesn't, but football regular season, it's not like basketball. Like football regular season is still really good, man. We had a good time on this channel last regular season doing the pick'ems and all that stuff. Yeah, that's good.
It's like a holiday series on some real tip. It's like a holiday.
Yeah, no doubt. Oh man, so here's the Christmas Day schedule for the NFL. I just looked it up. So Cowboys versus Commanders at 1:00, right? So that should be a good game. Obviously, rivalry game and all that. Lions versus Vikings at 4:30, and then Broncos versus Kansas City Chiefs. That's the night game.
We don't get no Christmas Day. I'm surprised we ain't get no Christmas Day game.
Well, I guess they said, we gave you all the Thanksgiving games, so we're not gonna. Plus, Baltimore had Christmas Day this past year, so.
Hey, they might flex it. Well, 2 of those teams trash. You know they're gonna flex that out.
Got to. You got to. So I feel.
Yeah. So, hey, I'm waiting for January, man. I don't even regular season. I'll be fucking. We finish 10-7 and make it.
Just make it. Get in the tournament, right?
Yes, man. Just it don't matter where we play. Who we play. I'm tired of seeing all these blogs. Oh, the Ravens gonna destroy the NFL. What difference? The ring. I need one.
Nah, you're gonna get it, man. We're gonna get it, man. Lamar is, and not just Lamar. Like that whole team is amazing. That's a really well constructed team. So just got to do it. That's all.
I don't mean to go back to the previous subject real quick. Charles Barkley popping shit, ain't he? Your motherfucker gonna tell me what to do.
Hey.
Shock the true lady.
Hey, he gonna tell her how he sees it.
Truck said you can't cancel me. I'm rich already.
Right. I make too much money. Fire me if you want to.
Man, that Kansas City whooped on Denver like that today, man. Let me ask you this real quick before I get off. I know this.
Yeah.
Well, is Denver windows closed?
Oh man, they good. Yeah, it is.
They've been getting whipped the past 2 years, though. Think about it.
Man, but so what does that tell you? All this Jokic is doing this and Jokic is doing that. What does it tell you?
He's not a defensive force.
Well, it's not even just that he's not a defensive force. Clearly, they need to find a better way to distribute what's happening on that team because all of his quote unquote greatness and triple-double basketball and all that, it's not leading to getting the job done. Right?
It's not getting the job done.
Yeah, it's not. It happened once, but it's not leading to it. And I'm not trying to.
I hope the Knicks make the finals because Indiana, OKC, finals would be a TV tragedy, but it would be good ball though. I think it'd be good ball. I would watch it. I wouldn't mind watching it. But for the ratings, whew,
yeah.
That's not gonna be a good look, man.
Nah, you know they're praying. You know they're praying for Minnesota and New York. They're praying for that.
I won't put it like this. I won't mind seeing Indiana get in the finals a while because they doubted Haley. This is a revenge.
True.
He wants revenge tour. So
True.
we go Indiana mini.
Mm-hmm.
You already know the best final matchup will be Minnesota and New York because of the storyline.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously both there. And then you get another elite matchup. You get Ant-Man and Jalen Brunson. Like, that's the plus. Like
Cat going back to Minnesota and Junior going back to DiVincenzo going back. Plus the accession of Ant. Will be the passing of the torch officially.
Yeah. Well, I'll say that in the Western Conference Finals and the Eastern Conference Finals, you got two great matchups. You got Halliburton, Brunson. You got SGA and Ant-Man. So, those are going to be really cool to see. The question is just how much are the coaches going to allow it to actually happen?
We got 4 months left, man. I was watching the goddamn UFL today, man.
I hear you, man.
Hey, man. All right, man. Catch up with you, bro.
All right, brother. Thank you for the call, man. I appreciate it.
All right, so.
All right, man. All right, y'all. That was Bruce with another great call, as always. So I didn't see any other calls coming in, so I am going to go ahead and I'm going to leave it right there. Thank you for everybody who stopped in to rock with me today. I appreciate it. Sorry for the odd time. I know that you guys are used to one thing, but like I said, man, my computer decided it was going to act up this morning. But, here I am delivering the product. So thank you for being here. Y'all have a great night, and we'll be back. We'll be back on Wednesday, God willing. But may have something prior to that. Depends on what's going on in the sports world. So, continue to like and subscribe and continue to share. And I appreciate all y'all are doing. Thank you. And we out. Peace.